Hello again, my loyal viewers and newcomers alike. I am Dark Zaz, and this channel is dedicated to exploring theology through history and philosophy. I am not here to attack or discredit anybody's beliefs, only to broaden the conversation and encourage thoughtful, open-minded dialogue. We are told that the world is built of stone, water, and flesh. We're told that history is a slow crawl of trial and error. But what if the world you see, the screen in front of you, the stars above you, the very thoughts in your head, was actually conjured into existence by two men who saw too much? Pythagoras and Descartes. History hides them behind the dusty label of mathematician and rationalist. But look closer. They weren't just solving for X. They were receiving transmissions. One heard the music of the stars. The other watched the world catch fire in a dream. They didn't just calculate our reality, they prophesized it. Welcome to the secret history of the mathematical oracles. History remembers them as architects of logic. We call them fathers of mathematics and modern philosophy. But if we look closer at the moments of their greatest discoveries, the label of scientist or philosopher begins to fail. A prophet is not just someone who sees the future. A prophet is someone who receives a divine pattern and imposes it upon a chaotic world. Today we peel back the layers of secular history to reveal two men who didn't just calculate the world. They received it through revelation. Pythagoras of Samos and René Descartes. Their visions weren't born of the classroom, but out of the divine. To understand Pythagoras, you must first discard the image of a man sitting with a triangle. In his own time, Pythagoras was viewed as a literal demigod. Pythagoras wasn't just a teacher. He was the leader of a mystery cult. He spent 22 years in the temples of Egypt and was initiated into the rites of Babylon. When he returned, he didn't just bring math, he brought a prophetic harmony. Pythagoras claimed to be the only human capable of hearing the musica universalis, the music of the spheres. He didn't discover that strings have mathematical ratios. He claimed that he was told by the divine that the universe was made of number. For Pythagoras, a number wasn't a tool for counting sheep. It was a holy vibration. He taught that the number 10, the tetractys, was a symbol of the organization of the cosmos. He didn't argue his points. He gave oracles. His students, the acousmatikoi, were listeners who sat in silence for 5 years just to hear his voice from behind a curtain. Why? Because you do not debate a prophet, you receive the word. To understand why Pythagoras was a prophet, we must look at the Croton cult. This wasn't a university. It was a monastery of mathematics. Pythagoras' prophecy was that all is number. He believed the universe was a perfect rational mosaic. But his prophecy faced a demonic interruption. The discovery of the square root of 2. This was an irrational number that could not be expressed as a fraction. To the Pythagoreans, this wasn't a math error. It was a crack in divine revelation. Legend says they drowned the man who revealed it at sea. Why? Because a prophet protects the sanctity of his vision at all costs. Pythagoras didn't just teach geometry. He practiced ascesis, strict spiritual discipline. He claimed to remember his past lives, including one as a soldier in the Trojan War. He was the first to call the universe a cosmos, a word that implies order and beauty. When he looked at a blacksmith's hammer hitting an anvil, he didn't hear noise. He heard the mathematical intervals of the fourth, the fifth, and the octave. This was his burning bush moment. He realized that the physical world was merely a shadow of a numerical reality. If you could master the number, you could master the soul. He was the first to prophesize that the language of God is not Hebrew, Greek, or Latin. It was arithmetic. If you think Pythagoras is only relevant to mathematicians, look at the opening lines of the Gospel John. In the beginning was the Word. In Greek, that word is logos. For Pythagoras, logos didn't just mean word. It meant ratio or proportion. He prophesied that the underlying structure of the universe was a linguistic mathematical code. This idea didn't stay in Samos. It traveled to Alexandria, where it fused with Jewish and early Christian thought. When early church fathers spoke of the order of God, they were using a Pythagorean blueprint. Pythagoras taught that the number 3 was the first real number, because it had a beginning, a middle, and an end. The first triangle, the first shape, the first stability. Is it any wonder the Trinity became the cornerstone of Western faith? He also prophesied the perfect year, a cycle of 36,000 years, after which the stars return to their original positions and history resets. He wasn't just predicting a solar eclipse. He was predicting the literal rhythm of God's breath. By the time we reach the Renaissance, the greatest artists in history, Da Vinci, Raphael, Michelangelo, were secretly embedding Pythagorean ratios like the golden mean into their cathedrals and paintings. They weren't just making art, they were building stone oracles based on the prophet's math. If Pythagoras was the prophet of the whole, he was also the prophet of the separation. He taught that metempsychosis, the migration of the soul. He was also a vegetarian, not for health, but for prophecy. He believed animals contained the souls of dead ancestors. He once stopped a man from beating a dog because he claimed to recognize the voice of a deceased friend in the dog's bark. This prophetic vision changed the world because it introduced the idea that the soul was a prisoner in the body. This Pythagorean dualism traveled through time, infecting Plato, then the Gnostics, and eventually the very fabric of Christianity. Every time you hear somebody say, "My body is a temple," or "My soul will go to heaven," you're hearing the echo of a 2,500-year-old Pythagorean oracle. He didn't just invent the triangle, he invented the Western soul. We move forward 2,000 years to a cold night in Newburgh, Germany. November 10th, 1619. René Descartes, a soldier and mathematician, shuts himself inside a stove-heated room. Most textbooks say Descartes decided to use doubt to find truth. That is a lie. Descartes himself recorded that his entire system of analytical geometry and the scientific method came to him in a series of 3 terrifying supernatural dreams. In his second dream, Descartes heard a clap of thunder. He awoke to see his room filled with sparks of fire. He didn't interpret this as a brain glitch. He saw it as the spirit of truth descending upon him. In the third dream, a book of poetry appeared and disappeared, and he was told, "Quod vitae sectabor iter?" What path shall I follow? He emerged from that room convinced the entire universe, from the stars to the human body, was a mathematical machine. This wasn't a theory. It was a vision of a clockwork universe that killed the medieval world and birthed the modern one. If Pythagoras was the prophet of divine order, Descartes was the prophet of the divine mind. In 1619, the world was bleeding. The 30 Years' War was tearing Europe apart. Certainty was death. Descartes didn't find logic through study. He found it through a radical prophetic act of intellectual exorcism. Descartes proposed a thought experiment that felt more like a haunting. He imagined a malign genie, an evil demon, who spent all of its energy deceiving him, making him believe in an earth, a sky, and his own body, when none of it existed. This wasn't a philosopher being clever. This was a man standing on the edge of a psychotic break, stripped of all reality, until he found the one thing the demon could not touch: the fact of his own doubt. Cognito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. Descartes moved the center of the universe from God to the human mind. He prophesied a world where the individual observer is the ultimate source of the truth. He paved the way for enlightenment, for the scientific revolution, and for the radical individualism of the 21st century. We live in the world Descartes dreamt into existence in that stove-heated room. History paints him as a cold rationalist. But there is a shadow following him through the streets of Paris and the battlefields of Europe. The Rosicrucians, the secret context, the invisible college of the Rosicrucians, was a secret society of mystics who claimed to possess the universal science. In 1619, the same year as his prophetic dreams, Descartes was actively searching for them. When he returned to Paris, he was so closely linked to them that he had to publicly deny his membership to avoid being burned at the stake for sorcery. Why would the father of logic hunt for a secret society of alchemists? Because Descartes knew his vision was incomplete without the secret key. The Rosicrucians believed in a universal mathematical language that could decode nature, heal the sick, and perhaps even grant immortality. His prophecy of the Mathesis Universalis, a single science that explains everything, was a Rosicrucian dream. When Descartes said, "I think, therefore I am," he wasn't just being a philosopher. He was performing a mental alchemy. He was stripping away the lead of the physical world to find the gold of the pure mind. This is the ultimate prophecy of the modern age, that through data, through math, and through science, man can become masters and possessors of nature, effectively becoming gods themselves. There is a darker, lesser-known side of Descartes' prophecy. If the mind is the only thing that is real, then what is the body? There is a persistent, haunting legend that Descartes built a life-sized mechanical doll, an automaton that looked exactly like his deceased daughter Francine. He reportedly traveled with her in a casket. When a ship captain discovered the creature and saw it moving, he threw it overboard in horror, believing it to be work of dark magic. Whether the story of the robot daughter is literal or metaphorical, it represents Descartes' second great prophecy, the world as a machine. Descartes looked at the beating heart and saw a pump. He looked at the arm and saw a lever. Before Descartes, the world was enchanted. Trees had spirits. The wind had a will. After Descartes, the world was a giant clock. This vision allowed us to build steam engines, computers, and artificial intelligence. But it also stripped the magic out of the world. He prophesied the industrial age, where everything, including ourselves, could be measured, mastered, and manipulated. Why do we call them forgotten prophets? Because we have integrated their vision so deeply into our lives that we can no longer see them. We look at a bridge and see Pythagorean math. We look at a computer and see Cartesian coordinates. Pythagoras gave us the music of the stars. Descartes gave us the power of the mind. They were not men who figured things out. They were conduits of a new way of being. They stood at the crossroads of the mystical and the rational, and they pointed towards the future we now inhabit. Next time you solve an equation or reflect on your own existence, remember, you aren't just thinking. You are participating in a 2,000-year-old prophecy that began with a man who heard the stars singing and another who saw the world catch fire in his dreams. We live in the tension between these two prophets. Pythagoras gave us the macrocosm, the idea that the stars and the soul move to the same music. Descartes gave us the microcosm, the idea our internal consciousness is the only certain ground. The world we see today, the world of algorithms, satellites, and virtual reality, is a physical manifestation of their visions. When you enter a virtual reality simulation, you are stepping into a Cartesian world where the mind is real and the body is a digital program. When you listen to a digital song, you are hearing Pythagorean ratios converted into binary code. These men did not discover the world, they invented the way we see it. They were the prophets because they saw a reality that didn't exist yet, and they spoke it into being with such power that we forgot there was any other way to live. We are all students in Pythagoras' silence. We are all dreamers in Descartes' heated room. The question is no longer whether the prophecies were true. The question is, now that we have inherited their world, do we have the vision to see what comes next? Thank you all for watching. And don't forget to like and subscribe. And I will see you in the shadows that history has tried so hard to forget.